Hi guys, this is Kyle from Regrettable Props, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use the Pepakura designer to help scale your templates for the Republic Commando tutorials that I'll be putting out for the month of December. I'll be providing a link to them, but these are not my files. They were initially made by Fierfek or Fierfek, however you pronounce it. I do apologize for the mispronunciation. Those were the initial paper files, and then they were converted over to foam or unfolded for foam by Cullen Cosplay. So anyways, just go give a shout out to them. But you'll be needing a program to actually open these templates, and that'll be Pepakura Designer. Just type into Google and it will be the first one that comes up. It is a free program that you can download. So once you've gotten to this page, you can click download and that'll start running the process. If you have a Mac, it might be a little bit different. I don't know. However, if you gone to the step for Windows, you can just read it right here. After installing, run the installer, follow the instructions. It's a pretty simple program to install. It doesn't take much to actually run, so it shouldn't have any real negative impact on your computer while using it. So anyways, once we have it downloaded and installed, I'll be providing these templates that I currently write here in my Google Drive to be shared for you guys to use. That way it's easy for them to locate. And what we're going to do is just quickly run over how to use the program, how to scale it for yourself, and some parts that you may need to be, or some things you need to be aware when having used a foam file that was not initially meant for foam. And what I mean by that is this model currently you see here is actually meant for a paper build. What I mean by that is you would print it on cardstock, glue the paper together, fiberglass it, use fiberglass resin to harden it, and along with fiberglass itself, and then you would use Bondo to shape it. And I might go through a helmet tutorial going through that actual process, but for the sake of this, these templates were initially made for that type of process. And when they're converted over to foam, there are some things that are not necessarily entirely accurate for foam. For example, these hard lines that you currently see here trying to make up this curve, it gives a pretty good curve, like it gives a good curve roughly, but it's very hard lines. It's not as smooth as it could be. It'd be a lot more folding that you would do on a paper build. For those who have done paper builds, paper Pepakura builds will understand what I mean by this, but since it's converted over to foam, it's much easier for us to get that curve. So if you have any curved areas, like here for example, where the armholes are or where the neck is, and there are going to be some hard edge lines trying to make up that curve, obviously just smooth that out on your template or when you're cutting it on your foam. That way it looks a lot more polished than what we would have currently here, for example. Now another thing is, well, actually, I'll just run over the basis of the program. You can use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out over here on this paper section or printer section. This currently here, these 4 pages are the 4 pages, or the 8 pages. My apologies. The 8 pages here would be the 8 pages of paper that would be printed for your templates if you're to leave it as currently as is. But as you can see, some of these where the dotted lines are mark the edges of the printing area for your paper. And as you currently see, some of these pieces are too large for that. So to quickly run over that, you zoom in, use the middle wheel on the mouse and zoom in and out, and you could do so over here on the actual model. Right click allows you to move this, and you can do the same thing for here. You can change the orientation or the viewing of the model. And if I want to select any of these templates, I can just hold the left mouse button, or I can just click on it, have it selected, or if I want to move a whole bunch, I can just drag and have it select as many as I so choose. The left click doesn't do anything on the model itself, but other than just selecting the piece, you can't do some dragging and highlighting of multiple pieces. You can only do one at a time. But if you select a whole bunch here, it selects a whole bunch of the ones that are on the model, if that gives you an idea. Another thing is, if you go to File, printer and paper settings depending on what you would print. Mine's currently set to letter because that's what I print on, but if you select to A4 or something else depending on what you have to print on, it will adjust the paper to properly be to that size. So since A4 is a little bit bigger than letter, now the you can see the difference if you the difference in the paper size. So A4, this is what A4 would, it's scaled to A4 if that makes sense. But if you are printing on letter, then you can just go back to letter and you'll see it makes that adjustments. These paper lengths is not as long as it was before. So other things are, if you hit right click over here or in the darkness, the gray area or the white area, it doesn't matter, you can select and move. That's what's currently on, and I can select this piece and I can move it wherever I want. You can currently see here this green dot that allows me to rotate it if I so choose. Control Z undoes what you just did. Another thing is rotating. You can select the one point and that will be, I selected down here. I selected here and that will be the point of rotation for it, so I can just go here and it will lock a little bit better on certain degrees, but I don't want to rotate it, so Control Z to undo that. Edit and join faces. This tool you're going to be using to break up some of the templates that are too large for your paper. So for example, if I go to select and move, this piece right here is too large, and same with this one I just dragged away. Now to make that fit on the paper, I would go to edit and right click over here or on the gray, just on this side of the screen, the right side. Select join and disjoin faces and break it, and the green line will show where it's going to be broken, and then now we are able to fit that on one page. And all we would have to do is, once we print it out, cut it, and then we could just tape this together, and then you'll have that piece that's supposed to be there, or back to how it's supposed to be in the model. Now a few other things that aren't accounted for when being converted over is the thickness in foam. For example, this edge, if you go to right click, and there's a couple other things you can do. You can add the flap size, that's more for paper builds. You can measure the distance between 2 points, that's another thing. The light bulb shows the shadows, but there was an option in Pepakura Viewer that allowed you to close these openings, but you can do that by measuring the distance between 2 points, and that'll close up all the models how it's supposed to be. And if you currently see this armhole, for example, has a lot of extra material that's added to this template because it was initially meant for a paper build, and to make up for that thickness in the paper build you would have to add extra paper, but we don't need to do that per se because we have that extra thickness made up in the foam. So for example, this area currently here where I'm dragging my mouse across or just highlighting, that curved portion is right here on the template. We don't need this extra piece of material on the template because we have that made up in the foam. So you can either wait till you print this template out and then just cut off that extra portion where you don't need it because it makes up in the thickness, or if you so choose to save you the extra work, but it might be a little bit extra work. If you save yourself extra work in cutting, it might be a little extra work in setting up the templates to be the correct way. I can go to edit and join faces, click on this portion along that dotted line, and that's just going to make up for removing that extra materials that doesn't need to be there. So now we don't need to worry about it, and that extra template you don't have to worry about, did I cut that off or not, and end up with extra material that's not necessarily needed. For like currently you see here, this extra portion, it has it as well for that edge, and you're going to realize, or you might see it yourself, where the extra material could just be cut off, or you'll realize it while you're building the actual armor pieces yourself. Another thing to remember is some of these pieces, when they're broken up for a foam conversion from a paper, they aren't exactly perfect or fitting as nicely, so you'll need to do a little bit of freehand on some of the pieces. You'll realize that yourself once you go through the building process. which pieces might need a little bit of extra reworking. Hitting Control Z undoes everything that I just did, or pressing it once as many times as I want to go back to how it was. So anyways, now we have pieces all back to normal, and hopefully now you understand how to make it fit on one page. So break it up here, break it up there, join that piece over there together, and bam, bam. Now I can select that and that, and now it fits on one page and we don't have to worry about it being cut off and lost. Some of these pieces have some extra whiteness which are lost. You can just figure that out by, okay, this piece goes over here, and just kind of when you're gluing the pieces or taping the pieces back together for the template, you can just mark it back up and you'll get it back in that correct orientation. Now to figure out for sizing, for scaling it for your body, we're going to measure the width, for example, and to measure the height of this template in any way, you go to measure the distance between 2 points. Since we have this extra material here, we do not want to be measuring on the inside, since that is meant for the paper build. But since we have this extra part made up in the thickness of the foam, we want to measure from the outside. So if you go here to here, the initial model is set for a width of 253.12 millimeters. That's what this data is given for the measurements is in. It's in millimeters. If you don't know what millimeters are, you can just go to Google, type in 253.12 millimeters into inches, if that's a unit measurements unit of measuring that you use, and it'll just give you a conversion at slightly less than 10 inches. Or if you want to save yourself on trouble, what's millimeters to centimeters, you can just type into centimeters and it'll give you 25.312, or you can just divide by 10 and it'll give you that conversion that you need. So anyways, to understand, that's the working unit of measurement you could be having while using Pepakura Designer. It's set in millimeters. I don't know how to adjust it for any other way. I don't know if you can, but anyways, it's set in millimeters. So now we know the width is 25.3 centimeters. You could take a ruler, put that up to your body, and see what your measurements are. If it's too wide or too small, you will obviously need to adjust that. And for us to adjust it, we go to the 2D menu. And if you go down to here, you go to change scale. You can either set the scale, or you can scale it up 10% or scale it down 10%. So let's say the template for this model is currently too big, so it will scale down the whole thing by 10%. And let's see if that has corrected our width issue to make it more appropriate for our size. So we want to go to the same area we had just measured. So these points here, and now it's 230 millimeters as opposed to 253. So if that fits you, great. If not, adjust it, and you can go to the 2D menu, change scale, set scale, and the width is going to appear slightly different because it's going to go from the widest portion of the model. You don't exactly know where that is, but since we know that this is the chest, this is going to be roughly at our waist. So whatever your waist measurement is here for the width, you want to make it, I don't know, probably 2 centimeters larger, or at least a little bit bigger than what your width is. You don't want it to be exactly the same size as if your width, because then if you mess up somewhere, and you have to add extra material, you got extra seams because it's now too big, and you need to adjust for that. And if you want to calculate the height, for example, we'll just go from here. You want to try and keep it a straight line. If you try and measure your height from over here, that's not going to be an accurate measurement, so you want to try and keep it in a straight line. So I'm going to here. The height of the model is around 26.7 centimeters. And if you're having a hard time understanding that or visualizing that measurement, have a ruler, meter stick, put it up against your body, try and see what the sizing is going to look like on yourself. the best way you're going to know how to size these is comparing all these measurements to your body. So measure twice, cut once. It'll save you a lot of effort or wastage and foam if that's the material you're using. So that's just going over the chest, for example. If we go on to something else, let's go to the shoulder. That's another piece that we have whenever it loads up. Okay. Oh, another thing I want to mention. Let's go back to the chest for a second. Chest. These templates are providing you with 1/2 for some of the sides, and the other portions where it's directly in the middle, you're only gonna need one of it. What I mean by that is, for example, if we go to select and move, this piece here is exactly in the middle. You only need to cut out one piece of it when you do your template for your foam. This piece here, which is not hard, let me select this one. This piece here is the right side of the chest, and it's right here. So it's only going to give you the right, you only have the right side being printed off. So this is one side, this is the right side, this is the right side, and this is the right side. These 3 pieces here are the right side, and to get the left side, all you would have to do is just flip them over, and now you have your left side of the templates, and you know what to do from there. And then you only need to do one of the middle portion. So like you have this, there's only one of them. There's only one of this mid portion of the back, and there's only this one mid portion of the front. So be aware of that when doing these templates over the foam. It's only going to give you one side for one side, and obviously one part for the middle, one whole piece, if that makes sense. Same for the shoulder. You can just, the shoulder is pretty symmetrical, so you don't need to worry about flipping it. You can just, just flip it, and then you'll be set. So if we want to calculate the width of the shoulder, we'll go from let's say this. There's extra material here. This, like you currently see, this open back, this piece here that closes the back of it. We don't need to worry about that. That's more for the paper build. So if you have some, if you're wondering why some things are different, that's why. So if we want to calculate the width, we go from here to about here. That's 26.6 centimeters in width, and obviously if that's too big on you, obviously make it smaller, or if it's too small, make it larger. Use a ruler, compare it to your body, see how the armor pieces will be going. If we want to go to the shin, for example, and, well, actually, what's a better example? Thigh. Have it load up in a second. Anyways, I'll just use the shin while it's here. Okay, here's the thigh. And now these templates for all the limbs, for your thigh, your shin, your forearm, and bicep, are giving you the left side. Be aware of that, because you're like, oh, where's my right side of the templates? All you have to do is just flip these templates over. So that since this model for this right here is made for the left thigh, all these pieces would have to be flipped over. Just mark them down right side on one side, and then you have your right thigh templates, if you understand that. So yeah, if you want to calculate the width of it, you want to calculate where it's the widest portion, and you want to then measure the widest portion of your leg and input it there. I always go for trying to meet the length, because I can cut down the width of something if it's too wide or big on my leg, or if it's too small in width. I can always add that, and it's not as problematic adding extra material to the width. If you made a piece that was the correct width but it was not the correct length, that's gonna look way more, you're gonna have to restart essentially, because if you have to add extra material, you have to break the whole piece, for example, in half, and then it just looks odd, funky, and disproportionate. But if you have to add extra foam material to your width once you make out these templates, and it's like, oh, I try and put it on, it doesn't fit my leg because it's too small in width, it's not as big as a problem. So anyways, if you guys were able to follow along great. If you are having difficulty, I will try and answer as best I can or clarify in the comment section. I know just enough of the basics to get me my templates scaled and printed and orientated for paper onto the paper to be printed off so I can trace them onto foam. There's other video tutorials on YouTube if you're still having difficulty, or if you need for installation on a Mac or installation problems, you can just type them into YouTube. Once again, the initial files are made by Fierfek. You guys are going to butcher me for that pronunciation. I'm going to be butchered for the butchering of the pronunciation of the names. And the foam conversions are made by Cullen Cosplay. The initial ones of the model are made by Fierfek. Oh my goodness. Uh, Anyways, it's been Kyle from Regrettable Props. I'm sorry about the 3-week hiatus. I was working on a commission for actually this Republic Commando, and all these videos are going to be showcasing that commission being built. And at the same time, I was in had a car accident which messed up my wrist, so I couldn't use it to build anything. So that's why there's been a 3-week break. It was for because of a car crash which affected my wrist, which means I couldn't build cosplay, and I had to work on a commission which the time crunch for that was also affected because of my injury. So anyways, Kyle from Regrettable Props. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to stay tuned for the next Republic Commando cosplay tutorials, which will be coming out this month of December. I'm going to try and get them all out before the end of the month. As well, if you have any comments or suggestions on how to improve the videos, or if you want to see future items built, leave those in the comment section. I take those in consideration when I work on the next project tutorial for you guys. Anyways, this has been Kyle from Regrettable Props. I hope you guys have a good day, and signing off. Bye.